Welcome to the Totally Radical Mixtape podcast with Charlie and Paul. We're going to go back in time to the 80s and 90s. And according to our new legal department, we're supposed to say not literally. We talk movies, TV, music, toys, food, and more that shaped our lives. Charlie, what are we featuring on this show?
On the show, we're going to be taking a mental health day off from both work and school with the 1986 classic movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off, starring Matthew Broderick, amongst many others. Then we're going to take a stroll down the de-evolution highway with the art punk band Devo, who are best known for their red planter pot headgear. No, actually, our legal department has informed us to say energy domes. Okay, so the energy domes. But know that you can whip us into shape by sharing what you think about these two 80s icons in the comments below.
All right, we are trying to buy a time machine. So join the sportos, the motorheads, the geeks, the sluts, the bloods, the wastoids, the dweebies, and dickheads that all adore us and think that the show is a righteous podcast by liking and subscribing on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Consider it like a telethon where you don't actually have to pledge anything other than just an hour out of your week to enjoy our show. So thanks, Paul. Later in the show, we're also going to offer up our latest ultimate mixtape song editions. But for now, let's fake a sickness. Let's borrow a friend's car. Let's take the day off with Ferris. It's showtime.
All right. Showtime it indeed. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. This was an interesting one because I knew we were eventually going to get to this movie, but when we've been trying to figure out what's happening with currently what's going on in our lives, the time frame, and it is a little, well, it's Labor Day weekend right now.
That's right.
So, yeah, Ferris, what's going on with Ferris Bueller?
I tell you, this is a template, I would say, for a lot of high school students as far as how to plan out a perfect hooky day. I remember as a freshman in high school hearing the legend of the senior hook day and stuff like that. And to be honest, I really wasn't much of a day off kind of person. But when I saw the glorious day that Ferris had when he was out, I figured, why not at least give it a shot? But yeah, this is one that definitely hits me in the heart as I always think back to the day off that I took and the day off that I got busted. But
oh, well, we'll get into those soon. I feel the same way. It's almost like there's a plateau, a platform that you just can't reach, because is it possible to do all those things that they did in the movie in one day? And it obviously matters where you live, your access to transportation, money, and we'll get into those soon as well. But yeah, it was Ferris Bueller's was released in June 11th. People obviously, I think they actually try to take off that day from whatever they're doing, work, school.
probably.
And as much as we've talked about this in the past, where a movie like this, $5 million budget, turns into $70 million in the box office.
Yeah, Matthew was gold back in those days. So he was fresh off of War Games and a bunch of other great roles that he was getting back in those days. So, but yeah, I think and even Cameron, Alan Ruck, they both worked together. So was it Biloxi Blues, the Broadway play? So they already were familiar with being the leading people within a production like that.
Yeah, and this is my theme. Apparently, I like to talk how old they were. I mean, Matthew Broderick was 23. Alan Ruck was 29, which I think that's even further than what Judge Reinhold was in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, as in the gap of age. And 29-year-old Alan Ruck playing maybe a 17 or 18-year-old senior in high school.
They're getting into Beverly Hills 90210 territory, because I think they were probably all in their late 30s and had kids that were the same high school age as their characters at that time. But yeah, he adapted well, I thought.
And I actually own Biloxi Blues. I think it's a wonderful film. I think I've been vaguely aware that it was a Broadway show. It came out in 88. But yeah, you mentioned War Games in 83, Lady Hawk in 85. Matthew Broderick, we mentioned, was considered for the role of Spicoli, right? In Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
He was. I think this is a little bit better fit than that was, though. Just off the cuff.
And then went on to do things like Glory in 89 and Cable Guy in 90, I think it was. And when he was picking up Sloane, his girlfriend, in front of the school, he was dressed in that large tan trench coat. He looked like his future role of Inspector Gadget.
I think he nailed it. He nailed it. And that scene was actually in front of John Hughes's actual high school, which is a little factoid. But yep, that's but he definitely was foreshadowing his career. That's for sure.
So with you mentioning John Hughes, and obviously we're going to get back to the rest of the cast, which you see some of them right there. John Hughes, if you grew up in the 80s, you better know who he is. He went on to do things like National Lampoon's Vacation, Christmas Vacation, Mr. Mom, 16 Candles, Pretty Pink, Weird Science. There's a theme within all of those. He probably made a lot of those kids or young adults extremely rich because he kept on plucking them over and over again. And if we were actually a podcast about themes, which we're kind of weaving that in, but John Hughes would be an absolute, a way to connect everybody.
Yeah, he certainly set the standards for how even high school dances were perceived in the 80s. I'm thinking, God, all the dances at Chesapeake, I'm just like standing over there, like, what are those people doing out there? Like in the John Hughes movies, everybody's like doing the same kind of white boy shuffle kind of stuff going on. But yeah.
Well, and that's why you mentioned that the connection again to the film registry is. They're saying this is culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. Watching the movie today, even Ed Rooney, as he's running down the hallway and he stops and walks past the classroom, and then he runs and then he stops and walks past the classroom. Just small little things like that are perfect. Yes. And the two teachers, at least the two teachers that I remember, one being Ben Stein, that approach. And then the classroom just drooling on the desk, which was me. It's just great stuff. It's wonderful writing.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it made me feel a little self-conscious, a little less self-conscious about falling asleep in my first period classes. Like, well, they did it in the movie, so I guess it's okay for me to pull off the same thing. But it just, but even so, to even tie within our own show today, the very first piece of music within Ferris Bueller's Day Off was a 10-second little keyboard interlude. At the very beginning, there's always the threads within the 80s. You didn't think about it back in those days, but it's a little creepy when you think back. Man, everything was connected back in those days.
I have to go back now and listen to the very beginning because I did not hear that. And when we get into Devo, I am actually curious, just based off of what I've learned about them, which is. And to be honest with you, all the topics that we discuss on the show, I never have taken this much of a deep dive into anything from the 80s that I have done with this. All right, so back to the cast, because you and I met one time in Vegas with a buddy named Kevin Perkins, and we had this little game of who did you have an ultimate crush on in the 80s? And we had to bring the person up on the phone, and we all said, all right, 3, 2, 1. And we showed our phones and the picture of the person. I think the winner was Elizabeth Shue, and I'm sure we're going to get into her. But Mia Sara was within my top 5, and she was 18 in this movie. Do you know where she came from?
I don't.
Well, she did some stuff on the soap side, like Guiding Light and stuff like that. But she did Legend with Tom Cruise, which I think is one of the greatest fantasy type of movies that was produced. Well done. I think Tim Curry he's what's that called? Rocky Horror Picture Show. But
Yes.
he's the bad guy, and they did such a wonderful job with bad guy. He looks totally evil, totally believable, amazing stuff. But she's in it, and then there's always somebody on the cast that doesn't actually go too far beyond that. Obviously, Matthew Broderick did, but Mia Sara went on to do Time Cop with Jean-Claude Van Damme, the muscles from Brussels.
Can't forget about that one. Yes.
But she's moved on to things like Harley Quinn, which I'm like, okay, I can see her as Harley Quinn from the DC comics. But she has a connection. She married Sean Connery's son, and then got divorced, and then I believe is with currently, maybe not. If I'm wrong, you can always correct us in the comments below. But then she married Jim Henson's son. So very interesting. Yeah, that circle of influence within the movie industry is certainly prevalent right there with Mia Sara.
Well, I know as we were deep diving on this, just a quick note, Molly Ringwald was one of the finalists for this role. And I think, they certainly selected the best person to be in a hot tub scene. It wasn't anything dirty or anything like that, but I would prefer to see Mia Sara than Molly Ringwald, just as my editorial note.
Yes. And then a lot, and Hughes had connections with all those, the people that wanted to play and be certainly, they obviously enjoyed him as a producer and loved his screenplays. So they asked, and he would tell them, "You're not the right fit. It's not enough for you. I need someone else," and so on and so forth. Yeah. But Jennifer Grey emerged from this movie doing quite well. She moved on to Dirty Dancing and Red Dawn, and then her career kind of bombshelled because of her plastic surgery.
Right.
It was I read a lot about that, and I always thought about that. Never really cared much to even read into it, but it plainly is plainly obvious, and she obviously did some damage control and adjusted, and she's doing fine. But she was 25 in the movie.
Yeah, she wasn't going to be holding a watermelon in the corner much longer, apparently, at least with her. And I thought she was an attractive woman. I don't know why she could get the complete teardown. I mean, and she doesn't even look like the same person.
No, that's absolutely true. No, that's one of the insane things about what she got done.
Yeah.
But she met a rebel of a guy, Charlie Sheen. He was 21, and when you look up the quotes, famous quotes in the movie, there are tons of great ones. He is just known as I think the boy in the police station or something, and his actual part name was Garth something or other. But they never mentioned Garth. They never mentioned his name at all. He was just the boy, the drugged out guy in the police station. So,
but what's interesting about that, though, is as I did my deep dive down the rabbit hole, they were in the original cut of this movie, which was 2 hours and 45 minutes long. Garth actually had a backstory. He was actually a friend of Matthew Broderick's. And there was some sort of a backstory with that. And I know just for his little scene in the police station, they said for authenticity's sake, he stayed up for 48 hours straight. So he had sort of that kind of look in there. And I mean, obviously foreshadowing to the Winning days later on. But I mean, he certainly captured his role in this movie for sure.
But with that type of commitment, that type of energy and passion, that's what landed him to positions, the roles after this, which he went on to also star in Red Dawn, in connection with Jennifer Grey, but moved on to Platoon in '86. So right after this, actually the same year, he either did Platoon or already had done Platoon.
Yes, it's pretty wild. I mean. And I like to think I'm fascinated with the idea of the 2 hour and 45 minute cut. And like the note we've got on the screen right now, where John Hughes actually wanted Ferris, Sloan, and Cameron to go to a strip club. I mean, imagine how that would have played out.
I mean, and then I heard that Ferris actually has 2 younger siblings that were in the original, and then they cut them out.
Yeah.
So and even some people say how at that and during that time frame, how can you really hold some people's attention for an hour and 30 minutes, which I can't remember how long the actual movie was.
They should get everybody back together and say, hour and 15 minutes on the cutting room floor. I mean, you could just reignite, a DVD. I mean, nobody sells DVDs anymore, but what an amazing extra that would be just to just get everybody. Most of the cast is still alive.
Yeah, I mean, usually, right when we look up a movie, we go, "Oh man, I didn't know they passed away." Even Edie McClurg, right? The
secretary.
Yeah, Grace. Grace. She kept on finding pencils in her hair, and she was phenomenal. She was a great. And you look into her not backstory, but you look into her career. Wow, she's done all kinds of stuff. So she's done really, really well for her. But the challenge that we've already set for each other is finding those ties. So Alan Ruck was in Bad Boys, which had Sean Penn in it.
That's right.
And there you go. That's my ties. Right. Yeah.
That's right.
All right. So let me see. I think we've covered. Oh, well, Jeffrey Jones, obviously Ed Rooney was just beautiful. He was Amadeus. He was in the movie Amadeus, and then Beetlejuice, which I think most people remember that. He did the Devo.
That's right.
And he was in Hunt for Red October and Deadwood. I remember him in those roles. I love those. They're not the top main character, or maybe even the top three, but they have this role that just lasts. You remember them. It's unforgettable. I believe Hughes even said, people are going to remember you after this. And he said, whatever. No, they won't. Yes, they will.
You are forever stuck to that. There were some interesting things, again, as we went down the deep dive rabbit hole. A lot of the improv things that occurred, like the Matthew Broderick with the whole sound effects keyboard, when he was doing his little symphony at the beginning of his coughs and sneezes. That was an improv type thing. I know the clarinet thing was an improv type thing where he just picked that up and said, "Oh, I can play it," and he didn't tell him he didn't know how to play it. So, not even one lesson.
I love that part. Those kind of things so simple, right?
I played the clarinet, so I know where he was coming from on that. That's for sure.
What a horrific sound if you don't know how to play it.
But here's another little old school common thread. So thinking war games, they went in and changed grades at the school. So in this particular case, Matthew Broderick, again, leading a hacking operation to change his number of days absent. So just in the old school, 80s monochrome computers. But he was a diabolical in that Matthew Broderick.
And whenever somebody says a number something times, I always go 9 times.
9 times.
And they go, what? And I go 9 times, 9 times. And some people just, what are you talking about? I'm like, Ferris Bueller?
Times. Hello. Another tie back to our prior show, again, challenging each other with this, when Rooney was going to bust the wrong student in that little pizza parlor, they were playing Karate Champ when the wrong person.
Yes.
So
that was mine. That was my game.
little ties, but they got a full point on that one. But also at the Cubs game, Sloan was keeping score, that's a lost art. I used to do that as a kid when you're actually scorekeeping, when you're doing all that stuff. I mean, good Lord.
Well, what was the score? It was 0-0. Who's winning? The Bears.
The Bears. The actual game that they were at was with the Expos, and I think the final of that game was 17-15. Again, this is what happens when you go down the deep dive rabbit hole. You find out all of these factoids and blow an entire afternoon, but really neat stuff.
All right, I wanted to talk about this because you watch the movie again, especially again if you're studying it, and I immediately noticed the camera angles were really interesting. I maybe it was just the director's artsy choices and stuff. Now I'm curious to watch. Well, you wanted to do Weird Science soon, so I'm going to really paying attention to the camera angles. And I did look up the fourth wall, and let me see. I put it up on the banner, but you know, the fourth wall aspect was interesting. And I go, who else has done this? And they do mention a few movies that were in the 50s, 60s. Not many at all. Not many.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking. I think I found lists that were maybe 14 or less. But I also remember as soon as they mentioned like Lord of War and Fight Club, I go, that's right. They just turned and they acknowledged the audience, the camera. So neat aspect. Great. And they even show the lists. I like like the 80s did that. What you need to do to act sick but not get too far with it, where you have to go to the doctor's office.
I think the most mainstream is Deadpool does a little bit of that. His movies,
yes,
if you noticed.
Yeah, was it? Yeah, I didn't want to give more money to Ryan Reynolds.
Right, he's got plenty. Go buy another soccer team.
So I did start writing stuff down. Like, okay, you wake up to go to school, and your parents are up and they're getting ready to go to work. What's that? 7 o'clock, maybe 8 o'clock. Okay. So then he ultimately gets hold of Cameron and they start I was trying to do the timeline of when these things were happening, that they could actually go and do this stuff, how long it took them to get to Chicago and get to the Sears Tower, get to the game. And it was exhausting, but kind of an interesting game to play. And I'm sure you could do that, as you mentioned in the beginning. Matter of fact, I just did it this weekend because I'm without my wife and my kid. I'm going, wow, I need to fill every day with stuff. And I would do this and I go, okay, that's good. You just did that for 15 minutes. Now switch, go over here and do something else. And now switch, because you can at least say you did it. It didn't necessarily, like I think you're going to get asked this later, but I'm going to throw this out now. Going into a museum to me is a time waster. I think it's a beautiful thing because certain museums are amazing and they have such great things to look at and read and learn about. But at the same time, there's so much stuff, and I'm going, I can't not just stand there and look and read and then move on, look and read. So, but they fit it in. They fit it in.
Right. Well, you have to also consider all of the John Hughes movies were staged in a fictitious city called Shermer, Illinois. So it would just really matter, I think, proximity to fictitious Shermer, how close it was to the city, because, I mean, it was doable. I mean, they could, if they had the right kind of transportation, but they're taking cabs, what I mean? So you really have to start questioning, if they got downtown quick enough, plus you had, to get Sloan from school. So, I mean, you're probably looking at minimum probably noon before you get downtown. But, but the reality of it is Chesapeake, we went from 7:30 in the morning until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So no way in hell could you pull all of it. You couldn't even get to the city and back probably in the time it took to get all that done in the morning. But I don't know where the hell they got 6 o'clock from.
But again, that's what makes Ferris Bueller great, because you can't match the guy's ability. He's just on another level. Now, to knock him down a couple of notches, though, there's a lot of people that had some issues with, the way he was privileged, and he, I always wondered, did he have lots of money to where he could afford that nice fancy restaurant, or they could get into a ball game, or those type of things popped in my mind briefly. And then ultimately I went, dude, it's just a movie about, hooking from school, getting your friends and having just a day off, because the mundane routine of school, because they were 2 months from graduation, and he was a senior. Obviously Rooney was going to do everything possible to make sure that he did not graduate.
Little known fact about that restaurant. So if you look at the name of the restaurant, it's Shea Keys.
Oh, is it?
Okay. So they did that on the pizza joint. So Shea Keys, that was done on purpose. And
well, I like that. I'd like to no, you have it in the banner because you added it. Here, I'll put it in now. The license plates. I thought that I never knew that.
Not a clue. I saw the VCTN before, and it just never added up until I did the deep dive. I'm like, get the hell out of here! But yeah,
Yeah.
that's accurate.
The first one you see, which is on the Ferrari, it says nervous, and I get that because you're either are you nervous that I'm going to pass? Who knows? But the other ones later, yeah, that was something I didn't even. And I also they said they painted the leaves. They painted all the leaves on the trees during the scene where the Ferrari crashes out because it was autumn and they were trying to showcase it was summer.
Wow.
Hey, so how was your day today? Oh, it's really difficult. Oh, on the movie set, what'd you guys do? Well, we had to paint leaves.
Yeah, that's some effort right there. But well, it was interesting seeing payphones at the school too.
Yeah.
They were talking to Ferris. I was like, wow, it's been a while since I've seen something like that. But again, a moment in time.
Moment in time. All right, let's talk about well, here, I'm going to throw this out there too. Switch this up. You can play around with a lot of movie posters. I thought this was kind of an artsy version of. It almost looks like the 50s Futurama, Future Days that you go to when you go to Disney. But that was it. All in a day. Again, the rest of us were just thinking about it, but he actually did it. That was great. Let's see here.
Didn't get busted.
And didn't get busted. Well, all right. So let's talk about what didn't go well, which was the Ferrari. Yeah. So the interesting thing about how much those things cost then and how much they go for now. There were multiple replicas, and it was also a vehicle of contention and frustration because all the things that went wrong with it, and so on and so forth. But it played a major role in the movie.
Oh yeah. I think they had it for the replicas were built on MG bodies or something like that, and even then they took a lot of blowback because Ferrari enthusiasts were like, "You can't destroy a car like that."
They even had a spin-off where I don't think their names were this, but they had a spin-off where the two guys, the two garage attendants actually had a day off by taking a car out and having where did they go? What did they do? And it was actually a spinoff showing what they actually did when they took the vehicle.
Right. Well, there were, when you mentioned that, so there was an actual Ferris Bueller TV show that was out for a couple years, which I vaguely remember that being horrendous. And then I also remember Parker Lewis Can't Lose, which was on Fox for a time, which was a far better written send-up of Ferris Bueller, I thought, than the show of the same name. But both of them weren't long for their demise.
Yes. So the I didn't know this, but you were the one that brought it up, that Matthew Broderick and Jennifer Grey would be engaged after this movie. I read that they were in Ireland and got into an accident.
I read that too.
And that put a really Debbie Downer on my research because they actually killed the mother and the daughter in the other vehicle.
Yep.
And oddly, Matthew Broderick, I think, paid $175 or something. And
he was spending his Ferris Bueller's money on good lawyers, apparently.
Yeah, apparently.
Let's not get sued by Matthew Broderick 27 years later.
All right. So this movie did get a 7.8 9 in IMDb, and then an 83% in Rotten Tomatoes. Way better than Bachelor Party.
Yes, a little bit more well respected than Bachelor Party was, and this was a complete movie. Again, for Bachelor Party, again we agreed, it kind of should have ended 15 minutes before it actually did.
Yeah, this one ended pretty good. I did enjoy the very end, and the mother and the father that were his parents actually got married and had children after the movie.
They sure did. So,
all right, music wise, I thought this was great. If you know anything about John Hughes movies, their soundtracks are groundbreaking. They bring in music that all of a sudden just gets launched into the stratosphere. To make a point is the song Ferris sings at the Von Steuben Day parade, which is in mid-September, and it oddly enough celebrates General Von Steuben. If you don't know your Von Steubens, let me educate you. George Washington and Von Steuben were great friends. Von Steuben was the one that actually, we learned this when we were going through the military, but all the military maneuvers, all the discipline was based off of Von Steuben's teachings. I think he was Prussian, but he was one of the great German Americans that came and certainly made a gigantic impact in how our Minutemen or militia or initial American military maneuvered and fought. But yeah, he actually sung "Twist and Shout," and 22 years earlier it was released, but then it just all of a sudden jumped back on the Billboard just because of that movie. Crazy impact.
Might have created a whole new generation of Beatles fans, as far as we know.
Why not? Let's see. Oh yeah, they became engaged. And all right. Anything else you want to mention about this? I mean, even Christy Swanson was in that one brief moment. Here he is singing, of course, the Twist and Shout song, the Donkashane, which I do believe he improvised when he had the mohawk in the shower, and even what's his name? I actually saw him in a concert, but he was Wayne Newton was actually came onto a military base and sang for us, and and the whole time going Donkashane, baby, Donkashane, and he liked it. So yeah, again, number 10 of the 50th best high school movies, number 54 people claim it of the 100th funniest movies. So phenomenal pick, Charlie. Pretty
timeless movie. Movie. Well, one thing before we move on to our next subject. So, like in your present day, like I say, if maybe after the Labor Day weekend, Tuesday, you don't feel like working. If you were going to take a hooky day, what would you do as your hooky day?
As at my age now.
Yes.
I would do something that I did this past weekend, which is I'd go for a hike. I'd go grab a couple peaks, earn a good workout, and then I would find a brewery, hit the brewery up, maybe go float down a river because it's super hot, something like that. Yeah. And try to in my age, try to stay up as long as I can. How about you?
Well, that's always the biggest challenge. Well, I would say so living in Vegas, like a normal day, as far as like a hooky day for me would probably be Christine and I would probably go grab a nice foundation breakfast and then go hang out at Durango Casino and have a couple old fashions, get some blackjack in, normal kind of, degen type behavior that we do out here in Las Vegas. But it's also hot as Hades outside. We only tickle 105 today. So it's, it's starting to cool down a little bit for the fall. But
yeah. I think I was supposed to mention my wife and my kid in my day off, but I don't.
Well, it was just a quick, we're just talking.
Oh, wait a minute. She's throwing something at me. Oh.
Right, exactly. Stay low. Well, speaking of degeneration and even de-evolution, that kind of leads us into Devo. So kind of leans in the 70s, leans in the 80s.
Yeah, yeah. This is a weird one because, again, there's so many options, so many choices of what we can cover. But you even brought it up in your mixtape selections last show, and I actually looked up
Peekaboo.
Peekaboo, yeah. I listened to Peekaboo.
Peekaboo.
And I think what really prompted this because people are going to go, why the hell are you featuring Devo in your first 3 shows? They weren't that influential, to be honest, in my life. But they're on Netflix right now, and they have a documentary.
And a very well done one as well. So interesting, I've been a Devo fan probably since like '79. My mom actually was, she liked Whip It, that's the song everybody recognized Devo from. But my brother actually was very influential in getting good music into my life at the time. And he had all of the early Devo albums at the time. And I'll be honest, until this week, watching the Netflix documentary, I did not realize the depth of the band. I mean, they've always been regular rotation. I mean, I listen to music while I'm working all week, and there's always a Devo song or two that's in that mix there, and I've always enjoyed the hell out of it. But I never realized the depth of the band. They were very controversial at the time. They mid to late 70s when they were kind of getting going. Vietnam War's wrapping up. There's a lot of tumultuous stuff going on. And even again, we were talking about this before the show.
Kent State, right?
Kent State. They were there for the Kent State when they actually fired on the protesters. 4 people
National
got
Guard
killed. Yep, over 30 got shot in that particular thing. So that was sort of their.
Yeah, and they were kind of leaning to obviously protesting against the Vietnam War and things but the Kent State thing just solidified what they were and what they were trying to do.
That's true. And so it was interesting to hear Mark, the one of the founders of the band, talking about sort of what the whole idea of this de-evolution thing was for him. And he was an artist at the time, hadn't really even played around with music or anything like that. But the idea for the band actually came from a pamphlet one of his professors gave him from 1933. It was a pamphlet called Jocko Homo, which was one of their early songs on the albums. But it was like the devil pointing at like these steps of different sins that humans can commit. Whether it's sex, drugs, suicide, even cockfighting. It was kind of funny. Again, it's so dated, going back to 1933. But sort of the idea behind it is that humankind was sort of de-evolutionizing, so sort of going backwards as far as
a regression. Yeah.
So
mankind was having a regression. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's interesting, again, in the deep dive chamber we've been in the last few days with looking into these. The early interviews were sort of just, hey, we're just challenging common thought. The government feeds you all of this information, but what you choose to do with it is up to you. And it wasn't anything controversial. It was just, songs with some thoughtful lyrics that go around it, even though they had sort of like the whimsical look with the flower pots on their heads and everything like that. But they were really trying to get a message across.
Well, and I thought they weren't, the flower pots didn't come out for a while, but their approach was very art. I think they were art students. They got into film. So I wrote down how you would categorize them, which is funny because you don't categorize Devo. I mean, that's what they were trying to prove is, hey, we're doing this because we're trying to share a message. We're trying to do this, but they didn't want to necessarily be big, but they also knew to get their message out more. Therefore, they had to actually play the game and, get under the thumb of the music industry and the record companies. They knew the bad that comes with that. But yeah, industrial, new wave, art punk, post-punk, art pop, geek rock, all these things. I'm running going, well, I guess that's who they were. That's who they were. Yeah, I guess they could be that. But just experimental, absolutely, with their not only sound, but their look. Even in the photo right now is one of their old ones that they actually came up with this pompous, haircut that resembled JFK's hair.
They were shooting for, right?
They were shooting for that, but then they got popular during the Reagan years, and people were saying, "Why do you have Reagan haircut?" And it was type of things going, you just don't get it.
No, no. Yeah, it was. Well, I think that again with their early stuff, they. I think. Well, I think like how influential could they have been in today's society when you've
Oh,
got
yeah. Social media.
social media and everything to just get your message out there. Because I mean, they came from Akron, Ohio.
I
It was
know. I thought they were British.
right. I kind of thought they came from Mars, but whatever.
that,
But
that
but so they
too.
came from Akron's kind of close to that. But they were showing they were playing these bars right between like the Firestone and the Goodrich plant, and they would tell the bar runner that they were going to play good old rock and roll, and they come up there with all this experimental keyboards, and they're just ready to kick them the hell out of there. But later, they started getting some favor with some more popular people. I know David Bowie introduced them. I know at one of their CBGB's shows. I know in New York, and I remember when you were talking about the labels. The Dead Boys, which was a punk band back in the late 70s,
Mm.
they actually resented the hell out of Devo because they were playing at CBGB's as well and actually started a fight on stage that happened. So, I mean, it was, a lot of back and forth, but actually, after they fought the Dead Boys, they were a little bit more respected in the CBGB circles of things. But
Yes, yeah, and I loved in the documentary them mentioning the Dove, the Christian soft
yes,
rock
oh
band, the
my
Dove,
God.
which if you move it around and it still spells Devo, but
Yeah.
they were again disguised, and the people they were opening up for themselves because they just didn't understand the whole. They just didn't believe the concept of why do we need to have somebody to open up for us, and they they had people going, "Boo! You guys suck. We want Devo," and they felt like that's exactly what they're proving their point once again that you guys just don't get it, and we're not the normal way of doing things. Um, I going back there's two sets of brothers. You mentioned Whip It was most popular, and they reached number 14 in 1980.
Mhm.
But yeah, their deadpan, surrealist kind of approach, very satirical. But they just kept on rolling. They just kept on working and working, not necessarily trying to make millions of dollars, but things just kept happening in a good way for them, where they met people and then they met some other people and networked, and they eventually met David Bowie and Neil Young and Mick Jagger and Iggy Pop and Saturday Night Live, and then Tony Basil, which I didn't know Tony Basil had that much of a connection with Devo, but again, crazy stuff.
Well, even ahead of MTV, they had actually
Yep.
gotten financed for a small finance, but they created sort of a collection of videos for their early songs. And when
Mhm.
MTV first came on the air, MTV needed content. And
Yep.
it wasn't like they had years and years of videos to draw on. They needed people that had stuff made. And Devo had like a handful of videos that they played them almost every hour when MTV
Yeah.
first launched. I mean, they were the darlings back in those days.
I love that when they said, "Yeah, our music videos were on almost every 10 minutes or whatever it was," because they just had stuff and everyone else is scrambling to meet that new demand. It was great.
But they became sort of a slave to the hit, because
Mm,
they had the deal. Well, initially they had the deal with Warner Brothers, and then
yeah.
uh, Richard Branson tried to steal them away or something like that. So there was all this court drama, even in the early part of their careers. But they never really could get that next hit that came out. But they did have still had an obvious following, but they only really made it 6 albums in, I think, and like 83 is when they finally had to fold up the tents. So that was unfortunate.
Well, all right. I I've never bought I've never bought a Devo album. My brother had one. That's how I got introduced to it. He at the time was into things like Madness and uh, the very new wave stuff that was coming out, groundbreaking, what
Mhm.
have you. And of course, you can't not turn your attention away from from this. Right when you see it,
That's
when
right.
you, when you see an album cover with these guys, you're going, "Who the hell?" And then I'm going to try to do this because we talked about trying to do this, but here we go.
There we go.
But I mean that when you have licks like that come on, and the freedom of choice, there's you just go, wait a minute, and then you discover they've had albums before this that you just you try to find in the record store. But I did like that they went they to sell themselves, they went to the record store and they said, hey, you need any more of our records? And they said, nope, we still have the one you gave us a month ago.
The one from last week. But but Devo is a true band. That's, again, some of those riffs that you just don't realize that's where it came from. Their first single that they had way back in the day, Unforgettable Urge, they still make $1 million in residuals a year off of that song. And that's the one that starts off, yeah. So, yeah, there's a, I guess, ridiculousness
what is that being,
on MTV.
Okay, that's what it's being used in?
Yeah, they still use it in the thing. And I've seen it pop up in other commercials and stuff like that.
That's what they were, though. They were in commercials like the Freedom of Choice. They were in a Honda little scooter ad, and it was a freedom of choice, and they were laughing because you didn't have a choice. There was only like 2 or 3 colors at the time. That's not a freedom of choice. So, but they did it to make money, to prove a point, to, and that seemed to be, for instance, working in a coal mine. I thought that was a great, because it was, again, the Reagan years. They were showcasing how we're just mankind working for something that is bad for the environment or whatever, and they're showing them doing their thing in the coal mine. There was hidden messages. I know that one of the guys is into subliminal messages, to be honest with you, but there's just that kind of approach, and it never stopped. They stuck with their theme throughout their career. And their interviews from the documentary are hilarious. They would meet, a top late night, talent or personality, and they would start asking the questions, and deadpan. They would stick to their guns, like, hey, are you guys super happy about having a hit? No, because people don't get what Whip It is all about. And they don't. Even I didn't. I just thought it was a good song and it was funny, but it actually had, tons of meaning below the ground, like an iceberg. And it must have been frustrating to them, but they just kept on going.
Well, when MTV finally stopped supporting them was a subsequent album. That's the song "That's Good," when it was the French fry that was kind of like fornicating with the donut or whatever. They said, no, we're not going to do that. And then they said basically that was it. Everything just stopped after that.
Come on, when they were trying to debate against it, you go, no, what do you think it is? It's like, what are you kidding me? It's a French fry going into the middle of a donut. Right. It can't be anything else, because honestly, when you go back and look at a lot of their stuff, there's a lot of woven in, sexual innuendo, sexual content. So that's just the way it was. But I did love how they loved the Sex Pistols. They were listening to them and they were mentioning, man, they're on the Ramones. The tempo is really sped up, and maybe if we just take our original songs that we've gotten and then speed them up a little bit, and
they all sounded better. Oh yeah,
they have been included into they have been nominated into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2018, 2021, and 2022. Their songs are in lots of different commercials. Like we mentioned, it was in Tank Girl in 1995. They have a strong fan base at this point. But yeah, I cracked up when it talked about the costumes, and they were into monkeys because they were talking about mankind's regression and the potatoes. But they even took their potatoes. And they made it. I think one of them is making vodka now. It's just that kind of, okay, you know what? Now we're going to take this and make money this way.
I was fortunate enough to see them live in 2008. I was in San Diego for, it was a local radio station, had a street scene back in those days. So the Saturday night band was supposed to be Black Crowes as the headliner, and they had to back out a few days ahead of time. And we were fortunate enough to see Devo. And I will tell you again, I was a fan growing up, but that kind of reignited my love affair with them, because they just did it perfectly. And it was funny, they came out on stage, had like normal clothes on, and then they had a ripcord, and then they were in the exact outfits that you have pulled up on the screen. So, but they killed it. I mean, instrumentally, and again, it's one of those things where you always get reminded of, oh shit, I forgot they sung that song. Or I forgot the guitar riff to that. But man, you just can't forget it. But yeah, it was a lucky break that I got to see them, and I heard that they're actually going to be touring with B-52s, I think, on the heels of this Netflix documentary, since they're kind of in the topic of discussion now. Yeah. So that would be worth seeing. I'm sure we'll get them through Vegas. I don't know. I'm sure California, they'll probably have a stop or two out there.
Yeah, I'm actually curious, as we continue doing these shows, the concerts that you get there in Vegas. I drive up a major highway in California called I-80, and I see the big billboards that talk about who's playing in the top casinos in Nevada and the Lake Tahoe and along the major highways. And it's always okay. What? Who's coming to town? Those type of things. You probably get it on a steroid level. Yeah, hey, can you tell the watchers and listeners about what the band's doing now?
Well, it was interesting. After the band ended, Mark was friends with Paul Rubens from Pee-wee's Big Adventure, recently passed. So he actually started scoring music for Paul Rubens for that Pee-wee show, did a shit ton of commercials, lots of stuff that he was involved in. And it's funny, they showed some of the commercials that he worked on in the doc, and it was really kind of just a little bit of a twist on normal commercials as far as some of the graphical things within there. But really, he transitioned. He did Rugrats for the longest time, and a lot of other fairly popular shows. And again, they've sort of keep resuscitating themselves. I mean, they've been a touring entity on and off for different festivals and stuff like that. So if I get the opportunity to see them this time around, I sure as heck am going to do that.
And they had their filmmaker also do quite well. I mean, they were nominated, which is what got them the attention of David Bowie, but they kept on producing interesting films, also interactive things that was groundbreaking at the time. But the filmmaker went on to actually work with bands like Rush and Soundgarden, Foo Fighters. So they reinvented themselves enough to where they're doing things today, or you've actually heard their work without even knowing it.
And that you mentioned about the video screen. So again, that was something else in the doc, where they were like the first bands to really use backdrops, not so much for just video, but also things that were sort of synchronized. You point at the screen and something would happen. They like shoot at the screen and something would vaporize as a. But I mean that's gone. Like obviously in today's. If you ever been to a White Zombie or a Rob Zombie show back in the day, I mean, the screens are just part of the show in terms of all of the different crazy graphics and AI stuff, that's out there today.
Yeah, absolutely. Crazy. I mean, you asked me, hey, did you watch a documentary? What do you think? And my one word response to you was wild.
Yeah, absolutely. Wild. So it's on Netflix. Again, we don't work for them, but if you have Netflix, you're probably asking yourself, why do I pay $20 a month for this crap? This is why. They always put like one good thing on a month that you'd be like, well, can I live without that? Yes or no? But yeah, this was a good one.
Agreed. Okay. Is it time for mixtape? I think it's time for mixtape.
It is time for the mixtape. I think you're leading off the mixtape offerings this week.
Right, let's see here. All right. I will offer these songs. I'm literally going down this gigantic 600 plus playlist that I've created and going, all right, clearly I like this song. and
Yeah.
I'm all over the place. But I will throw this at you. Your "Come Along" by Salty Dog. I listened to all your music, by the way, and
Excellent.
I did love the kicks and the Cinderella, and "Wish You Were a Beer." Loved it.
Cycle slots from hell.
Yeah, interesting. But check this out. "Come Along" lyrics. "Sweet little baby, she's my hot dog bun. Come along with me, just about a barrel of fun. Gonna brush myself once right across the hair, like old Mother Hubbard. All of my cupboards been bare. Come on, see my door always open. Even take a bus if your car's broken. Come along, come along." I was going, what kind of lyrics are these?
Fantastic lyrics.
All right. Okay, so my speaking of David Bowie, the China Girl song was something I've enjoyed listening, and I threw that out. It's from 1983. "Don't Walk Away" by Jade. Clearly, this was my I was obviously graduated. I was in the military. I was going to clubs, and I was dancing. So "Don't Go Walk" by Jade. "Forever Live and Die" by OMD. Nice throwback to just the music that I enjoyed listening to in '86, which, if I'm mistaken, right? 86 was also the same year as Ferris Bueller. "Strut" by Sheena Easton, which she was so hot back then. And then "Let the Music Play" by Shannon from '83. All right.
Well, let me ask you a follow-up question. You said the Jade song, you mentioned that, you were dancing back in those days. So were you dancing in any sort of way, shape, or form like they danced at the prom and Fast Times, or
No. I converted over to what was going on at the time.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So
no,
like break dancing? Were you doing anything along those lines? Any
not break dancing. Just kind of, well, it was mimicking what was going on in the music videos at the times. But I will tell you, we might want to bring this up, but I actually bought a break dancing manual, and I studied it, and in my room I sat there and tried out these moves, and I tried to learn how to break dance, and it didn't go well. But I do remember when you mentioned that, it brought up memories of the book. I can even see the cover in my head right now. It's crazy.
I mean, you have the build for it. I could picture seeing you like walking up to me at Abel Baker Brewing Company in Las Vegas and slamming down a piece of cardboard, and then just starting to spin, or maybe even a head spin, something like that.
Busting a move.
A pop and lock.
Pop and lock. I love the pop and lock.
So just was curious as far as that. All right. So my my hot picks for the week, again, borrowed another one from the Devo archives. "Gates of Steel." That's a perfect example of what's Gates of Steel. I've never heard that. And then you'll hit the guitar riff is like dun, 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 dun. There you go.
We have to stop it. We're going to get copyright.
Right, exactly. They're going to kick the door down. But it's one of those songs like, oh shit, I did not know that was Devo. But yeah, fantastic song. All those albums. That's off of Freedom of Choice, which came out in '80.
Yeah, I'm looking at just in Spotify. There's 39 songs that they have in here, and anyway, yeah.
Fantastic. "Oh Yeah" by Yellow. So again, the Ferris Bueller's connection. Oh yeah. So I think that song basically made that guy money for the entire rest of his life, as it shows.
Yeah, it said that that song was never even heard in the United States until that movie.
Yep. Yeah. First time for me, that's for sure. Another '80s gem is the Pixies, "Wave of Mutilation." Many good songs off of that initial Doolittle, wasn't the initial, but the more popular album Doolittle, which was out in '87. "Wave of Mutilation" actually has a California Surf version as well, which is a little bit slower, which was in High Fidelity. It was actually a part of that soundtrack that they did a sort of a B-side for that. But again, fantastic song to check out. "Blues" by Junkyard. David Roach, the singer for Junkyard, passed away a few weeks ago.
Okay.
Had passed away of cancer. But Junkyard, they were one that was viable in the 80s. So they had two relatively popular albums at that time, had a couple smaller things that happened, and then inevitably, like everybody else, they kind of went away in the OOs. But they
Whoa.
actually still
Stand
Gates
by.
of Steel. Still jamming.
I know. Still jamming away. Gates of Steel.
It's all good. But anyway, but they were a band that became viable again. Got to see him here in Vegas 3 times at smaller clubs. They were actually one that made a new album that was good. It's called Faded. It came out about 7 or 8 years ago. But again, check them out if you've never seen them. And then, of course, the Beastie Boys. Oh my God. Takes me back. I almost did this song at karaoke when I was away for work about a month ago. And I said, I have to do, if I ever do that song, I got to do that in front of some more people that I know, because I would never be able to live with myself. But
I wanted to actually study all of the lyrics. I want to sing along.
I can nail them all. I mean, I tried to, I proved I can do it a cappella all the way through. But have you ever seen Beasties live?
Yes. Yep.
What year did you see him?
The Sabotage years.
Okay. Yeah. I saw him at a one-off show in Hard Rock Casino in 2004. So it wasn't really around. I think it was the To the Five Boroughs album, so it would have been 03. So that makes all sense. But I'll tell you what, it was so tight and just, oh my God. It was one of the few concerts that I've ever had to just sit there for like 10 minutes afterwards and just say, what in the hell did I just see? I mean, it was just every word, every comma, every punctuation, just amazing. Just
I should have seen them when they were doing Paul's Boutique, but that's
oh my God. And the B-Boy Bouillabaisse, which is the last song on that album, which about 16 minutes long or whatever, that just ties all that other stuff together. I mean, that'll probably be on Charlie's picks next time around. But for now,
I'm gonna have a couple of I'm gonna have a couple of Beasties myself.
Hell yeah.
Awesome. Well, hopefully everybody's written that down and checking them out.
Check them out.
Check them out. Check it out. What's it?
We wouldn't steer you wrong.
No. All right. What do you think? Oh, well, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a Mother Earth Peaches and Cream.
Ooh, okay.
This is Mother Earth makes a fantastic beer called Casale Creamin', which has sort of been one of their flagships for 20 years and change. They're out of Vista, California, so close to Mr. Paul. But the Casale Creamin's always been their flagship, and they've made some offshoots of that. They have the Dreamsicle flavor, which is pretty damn good. Again, the Peaches and Cream. Peaches and Cream used to only be in their mix packs, and now they finally smartened up and put it in an actual 6-pack. So that's a positive step. And then they even did a big nitro can for Casale Creamin', which is just a fantastic way to enjoy your Casale Creamin'. But yeah, Mother Earth, if you're in California or anywhere that has distribution, get your hands on it.
Yeah, I've had quite a few of those. Enjoy it. Well, I'm enjoying not something from California, but Shiner from Texas. That's right. This is one of those original German immigrants that came here and set up shop in Texas. The Shiner, if you go into any airport in Texas, you're going to see Shiner displayed all over the place. Yeah, it is massively popular there. And of course, I love it says Prost at the very back. Box are, I think, kind of a misunderstood style, but they're beautiful caramel molasses. And I actually, my friend Michelle, she'll probably be a future guest. She loves this beer. She keeps on giving them to me. I actually said, you know what? I'm going to brew it for you. And I nailed it. I brewed Shiner Bock, and it tastes just like it. Obviously, it's not as cool and commercial as it was, but yeah, it came out really well, and I was really happy with it. But good stuff.
Yeah, I was in a maternity ward, just happened to be swinging through Texas for work, and I went through a maternity ward, and they actually have Shiner Bock in the baby's bottles. So, I mean, they're starting them off early.
That's right. Yeah, just the oddest thing that you would expect to see in Texas, but oh well.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you think?
I think we're wrapping it for the week, my friend.
All right. Well, the day and the show eventually has to end. Thanks for tuning in. We are like Ferris playing the clarinet. We still need some practice.
We're going to keep trying to hone our skills on our side, and all we ask from you is some likes, some subscribes, and some alerts. So let's get it done on YouTube. Let's build that subscriber base, and make sure on the way out you put your trash in the bin and exit stage left. We'll see you on the next show, everybody.